Hey yo, Keeney coming to you with another Autel MaxiSYS Ultra video. This one is just going to be very introductory focused, so turning the tablet on, navigating through some of the basic software functions, uh, things like that. I've got a list of things on my computer to not forget as we go through, so I'll just jump right into it. When I first got the Ultra, there's an end user license agreement that you have to agree to use the software. And other than the first time that I powered this tool up, whatever, a year or two ago, I haven't been able to re-find this same user agreement anywhere on the tablet, but I took a picture of it and I'll see if I can't paste that in front of my face right now for you to read. But when I first powered on the tool, the very first time, End User License Agreement Section 7.6 says the software is subject to China laws, including those governing the privacy and security of your information. If you register and use the software, you are transferring your information to Autel in China. By providing your information to Autel through the software, you consent to the transfer of your personal information to China and our handling of your information in accordance with applicable China requirements. So, just as an FYI, using the foreign tool, all of your data for said tool is going to China. If you don't care, I don't care. Maybe just my personal opinion, be careful about what information you access on the tool. Like, simple example, especially, not that I would have anyway, but especially after this, I'm probably not going to log into my banking information from the tablet. It's just not going to happen. So just something that I thought was interesting when I first powered up the tool. This is the agreement. I actually read it, a picture of it during that, and then just moved on. So just something that I haven't heard anybody talk about. Thought I'd bring it to you for information. The next thing is talking about what MaxiSYS is. So the MaxiSYS, based on what I have come to understand, is used in two main frames of reference. The first is a series of tool lineup. So you have the MaxiSYS Ultra, the MaxiSYS 909, the MaxiSYS whatever model number that they have. That's one frame that it is referenced to, but also inside each one of those tools, MaxiSys seems to actually refer to the program. So MaxiSys is the automotive program that is embedded into the tablet that we use when we go and connect to a car. So like Microsoft Excel is a program on the computer. MaxiSys is the program we use on the Android tablet, would be my closest analogy. Just some quick notes. The battery life on this Ultra has been pretty stellar. I've been pretty happy with it overall. The battery will last generally for an 8-hour day. So if I'm using it all day on the tablet, it will run with me the whole day. It's pretty awesome in that regard. If you put the screen to sleep but don't shut down the tool, so if you just like quick touch the power button, you will consume about 10% per day is what I have seen from battery life. So if you get out the tool, you got 90% battery first thing in the morning, and then you just touch the button to make the tool go to sleep. It's still powered up, but the screen is off. If you don't come back to it until the next day when you open it, or hit the button to wake the screen up the next day, you'll have about 80% battery life. So it's like 10%-ish per day that you'll go through if you don't turn it off. There's one thing that I read in the owner's manual that I haven't seen any further information on. It just says that it's equipped with it, and this is all a guess or an inference based on this feature or this equipment that I read. It says it has a gravity accelerometer inside of it. One could only assume that that is to detect when the tablet is falling. I assume it will disconnect something internally, whether it's software controls to disconnect some piece of hardware or isolate a piece of hardware to keep it from getting damaged if it impacts the ground. I don't know. They don't really offer any further information on this mechanism other than it says it has one. So if that's what it's for, is to protect itself when it falls, I think that's pretty cool. I have not dropped it very high. I have dropped it a couple feet, probably just a couple feet thus far, and I haven't had any issues. It does have, if you saw my unboxing video, the rubber footprint on the outside of this tablet is pretty good, pretty robust, and I do like the way that the corners are raised. From an engineering design perspective, this is pretty effective. If you know anything about the RMRs, they have a similar footprint. So when you strike or impart force into one of these corners, because the raised section is on the corner, it will put that force down the sides of the tablet, and it will not put it through the middle of the tablet to crack your screen. So I think that's a pretty cool feature. Those two things together with the gravity accelerometer and the raised edges, raised corners on the tablet to direct force imparted down the sides of the tablet as opposed to down the middle. I do like those together. I think that was well thought out. It does also have a fairly robust handle. So I grabbed this thing to hold this tablet and move the tablet, getting in and out of cars, probably more than I should. I don't know, but this thing is pretty robust. I grab it pretty regularly. I've caught it a couple times, trying not to drop it. I've caught it by the handle, and I haven't had any issues. It still has the same spring retention that it did in the beginning. I'm a fan of the handle. I think they did a good job there. Then obviously hanging it on the steering wheel all the time, it does very well. I'm satisfied with that. There is no OBD1 option that I have found from Autel. So I even called support. I've called support several times to work through things and ask questions. But if you have an OBD1 vehicle with a 95 and older, Autel does not have a solution for that. So there's the non-OBD cable accessories that I've got in the original unboxing video. Those are the, like I said, non-OBD2 adapters, but they're not OBD1 adapters. So to me, Autel doesn't make that clarification explicitly in any of the documentation or videos I've seen so far. So if you're curious about their non-OBD kit, what is it, the MSOBD kit or something like that, I think is the part number. It's not OBD1. Just know that if you want OBD1, you got to find probably a different tool supplier like Snap-on to be able to do all of those vehicles. Moving on to the VCMI, which I actually don't have in front of me. So the VCMI is a piece that you plug into the car and also what you plug your scope into. And then you connect the VCMI to the tablet to do whatever you're doing, whether it's diagnostics, scopes, measurements, whatever. To connect the VCMI, to the tablet, there are three different ways, and I haven't seen anybody talk through the differences in these three ways. The first one is a Bluetooth connection from the tablet to the VCMI. So if you plug a VCMI into the car, you can connect wirelessly via Bluetooth. The Bluetooth has a 380-foot unobstructed range, wireless range from tablet to VCMI, and it is said to be easier with use for multiple VCMIs. So if you have a shop with more than one car that's running more than, or in each car has their own VCMI, you can Bluetooth switch from each vehicle that has that VCMI installed more easily and or faster than the other connections. The drawbacks to Bluetooth is you have a slower data connection and it does not work with the scope because of the slower data connection. So you get more range but less actual data consumption between the two devices. The second way that you can connect to the VCMI with the tablet is via a 5G Wi-Fi signal. The 5G has a 164 foot or like 50 meter or something connection, unobstructed wireless connection between the two. Though they're called out in separate sections in the manual. So the first part says you can connect Wi-Fi from tablet to VCMI for up to 164 feet for normal diagnostic stuff. But if you want to use the scope, that range shortens from 164 to 98 feet. So if you want to use the scope, you have to be closer to the vehicle. If you're going to use the Wi-Fi connection, then you have to be to do normal diagnostic PID data stuff. Also, this seems to all be within I'll call it the volume of data that's being transferred between the two devices, the tablet and the VCMI. In the scope, you can do some math functions, and you can only do basic math functions with like channel A and channel B, it says, with the Wi-Fi connection. And again, I assume we have so much data coming across that it just can't keep up. Like the data you're recording via scope is faster and a higher quantity than the 5G connection can actually transmit. So you're a little limited there. Also, again, for the same reason, the spectrum view in the scope is not supported via Wi-Fi connection. The spectrum view is actually a really cool feature. I haven't seen anybody else really use it too much. There will be videos coming in using the spectrum view. Specifically, there's some NVHE evals that I will do and will use the spectrum analyzer for, because they are, if you really take the time to go through it, they just come in clutch. So there will be videos coming on that. But regardless, spectrum view and scope can't be used with Wi-Fi connection. It's too much data and it will overwhelm that Wi-Fi data transmission rate. And all of the measurement functions in the scope do not go over the Wi-Fi connection. So as you have a trace, there's some automated, they call them measurements, but you can calculate frequency, duty cycle, things of that nature with the scope itself. Some of those are limited over the Wi-Fi function. And in running into these not all, running into most of these categories, thus far, I have seen the tablet say, it'll pop up with a message that says, hey, this function is not allowed via Bluetooth, connect via Wi-Fi. Or, hey, this function is not allowed via Wi-Fi, connect USB. USB is the third type of scope connection. We've got that, whatever it was, 6-foot USB cable where you connect the VCMI to the tablet. And then for most of the issues we've talked about thus far about data transmission rates over Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, USB compensates for that. So we can do all of our super sampling for our scopes, our sampling for our spectrum analyzer, the rest of our measurement functions in the scope view, etc. There is one additional that is not in the manual, and I actually ran across it uh, working on a vehicle. So for the Ford Power Strokes, when you do the cylinder balance test, where you get the squiggly line going across the screen for all 8 cylinders, it's PID data that you're getting. It's not scope data. And if you are using a Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connection, the data that's coming back for those cylinder contributions is so high, like the volume is so high that it still overpowers the Wi-Fi signal. So you have to actually plug in directly USB in order to get it. So what happens is, if you've run into this, if you're doing some sort of PID data acquisition on a vehicle and it keeps airing out or freezing, a workaround, there's a couple things you can do, but one of the workaround tests that you will want to do is use a USB connection and plug the two together and then see if that PID data starts to cooperate like it's supposed to. I've had that in 2 different vehicles where some sort of scan data will freeze and you have to go in and USB it in order to make it continue to work. There's also like a cache clear that you can do if the tool's acting funny, but I'll cover that later on. When you're using the VCMI connected to a vehicle, the VCMI powers up off of pin 16 on the OBD connector. And on, I'm going to say, most vehicles, I haven't run into one where this is not the case yet, so maybe I just haven't experienced it. But if pin 16, the OBD connector, does not have power, the tool, the VCMI, will not connect to the tablet correctly. So it has to be powered up in order to make that that data transmission connection where you can actually start going and doing your diagnostics for scan data. I thought that was interesting. That said, a little miniature pro tip here. I don't have this in front of me, but I'm sure you can imagine most pin 6, I shouldn't say most, frequently from what I find, pin 16 power is also tied to whatever power circuit that feeds the cigarette lighters, or cigar lighters as it's called in service info, in the vehicle. And those fuses are always blown because people overpower them or they're shorted. So I've actually had a couple come in where there's no pin 16 and you just look for a fuse to see it's blown, and I'll just, having no accessories plugged into the cigar lighter, make sure it's open circuit. I'll just run some jumper leads and like a test light so I can see if there is a current short where the fuse is. So nothing plugged into cigarette lighter, tool not plugged into OBD connector, remove the cigar lighter fuse, insert test light, and it powers like very brightly. So we've got a several amp short, or a short somewhere in that circuit, that is able to power 2 to 4 amps of a high load test light that I use to check that. All that to say is, if you're trying to connect to a vehicle and there's no power at the OBD port, and you find you've got a short in it, rather than run down that rabbit hole, what I have found is an alternative solution is to take I have like one of those old jump boxes, like for dead batteries, that has a 12-volt cigar lighter attachment on it. And the Ultra kit comes with a cigar lighter adapter where you can then power and charge the tablet and or the VCMI. So what I will do is I'll take my jump pack, set it on a passenger seat. I'll run that cigar lighter adapter that comes with the kit into that, run the power cord to the VCMI, and then I can wirelessly, that powers the VCMI, and I can wirelessly connect the tablet to the VCMI, I can get my diagnostics done without having to get more authorization to figure out why I can't even connect my tool to their vehicle anyway, because they don't have power at pin 16, which most people, when they come in like that, they haven't had it forever, they don't care anyway, based on my experience. So that's a quick workaround to to get data so you can continue your triage on the vehicle without having to get sidetracked and figure out how to get pin 16 power going. Hope that makes sense. When you power on the tablet, there are three methods. There's three lock screen entries. I guess at this point, I'm going to swap this camera around to the tablet. I was thinking about doing a screen record for this, but I want to be able to point at things on the screen also without actually clicking them. So I'm just going to put this camera on this tablet. It's probably going to have a pretty terrible uh, mirror of the ceiling or reflection or something. We'll just work with what we can. So we'll spin that around and get going. All right, so we should be looking at the tablet screen. It's currently, the tablet's powered on, but the screen is in sleep mode. So I'm just going to touch the upper right-hand corner power button. And then on this screen, you've got three methods of entry. You've got this M home, which is your MaxiSYS tool function home that we talked about before. There's the regular unlock. The regular unlock will take you to whatever last screen you were on when you turn the screen off. And then there's a camera entry. My camera doesn't want to focus on any of this. And then a camera entry function. So you can go straight to camera wherever you left off at, or straight MaxiSYS home. So we'll just do this normal unlock. And right now I have the VCMI connected to a vehicle, and whenever you connect to a vehicle, typically you're going to get this pop-up window that says vehicle detected, and it'll give you options to enter into different functions of the tool depending on what you would like to do. For now, we're just going to get rid of this. It'll probably pop back up here in a few minutes. So there's two main, I'll call it software halves of this tablet. There's the Android half, which is what we're looking at now, and there's the MaxiSYS half. Those are our two main areas. For your Android half, it looks very similar to any other Android tablet you would have, just like you're looking at here. You got camera, alarms, your file storage, etc. And then you can enter into the MaxiSYS half a couple different ways. The easiest way to get to the MaxiSYS half of the software is to either use this MaxiSYS application button or this home button down here at the bottom of the navigator button. They call this bar at the bottom is your location and navigation buttons. This home button here will also take you to the MaxiSYS home. So I'm going to point out again two different homes. We've got MaxiSYS home, which is just a normal house, and then there's a house with the Android embedded in the middle of the icon. These are your two halves of the tablet software, MaxiSYS and Android. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the MaxiSYS half, and then we'll continue to talk about the rest of this. So I can just hit this home button here. Now we are in the MaxiSYS half of the software. All of these large icon application squares, there's 8 of them on the screen. Those are referred to as application buttons. And the bottom bar here we've already talked about is they call it the locator and navigation buttons. And then over here in the lower right hand corner you have your status icons. From here you can do any of the normal like phone/tablet functions that you might want to. We can just click on it. You can customize these too. So it tells you what Wi-Fi you're connected to, battery status, some of the latest things that you were doing, etc. Just sort of your general information on what's going on with the tablet. You can also pull this down from the lock screen. So if I just touch the power button, touch it again, and drag down from the top, you'll get that same information. The lock screen you can also customize with pictures and cute little quotes or whatever you'd like for whatever type of fun you're trying to have. In any case, back to the MaxiSYS home. There are, if you look down here, we got the bubbles. So there's 4 main screens of the MaxiSYS home. If we swipe right and go to the leftmost screen, this screen is just a search, and based on what I have found, it's a pretty useless search. The only thing it does is show the different, like, it doesn't matter what I type in here, it's just showing you what vehicle platforms are supported for the diagnostic tool. It's the only thing it shows. Like, even as I scroll down, to me, it's pretty useless because most of these vehicles are going to have auto ID anyway, which we'll get to. I don't really know why this is here. Maybe they meant it to do something else, and then I have no idea. I really don't. So we're going to go back to our main screen. Each one of these application buttons is how you enter into different forms of the tool that you purchased for the automotive side. These application buttons are reorganized actually kind of more than I thought they would be. Every time, I shouldn't say every time, frequently when you get software updates, these application buttons will change order and change grouping. I am unable to move these around. So for example, if I wanted to move this service application button up to the top left, doing the normal thing, whenever I go to do that, nothing happens, and then it does different stuff. So you can't actually move them around. Like, touch and hold, try and move, like, nothing happens. It doesn't do what I want it to do. So I don't think, if you have control over this, I have not figured out how to get it. They also group these. So for example, if I swipe over to the next page, you can see our measurement applications are all grouped under the measurement group. Again, I can't pull these out or change it, but you've got your scope, your DVOM, your waveform generator, and your OBD scope eval. This is a few updates ago. The new energy, HV pack test, and compressor test used to be in their own group, and then another update came and they pulled them out of a group, and now they're listed separately in a weird order. I don't know why this is done this way. I don't have control that I can figure out how to actually do this, customize this on my own. On the Android home screen, you can move apps around. So if I touch and hold, I can move this app up here. I can move it back where it was. But when you actually enter in the MaxiSYS half of the software, it's fixed. Also, the navigation buttons here at the bottom are fixed as well. I cannot move any of these in any location. So if I touch and hold and try to move, nothing happens. It doesn't go anywhere. We'll start on here at the bottom, I guess. This is something I've never seen anybody really talk through, is what do all these buttons do? This back arrow is just a general back button. If you're in the Chrome browser, it's like hitting the back page button. If you're in any of these functions, whether it's settings or a diagnostic, whatever, this back button will generally exist, and it'll take you one screen previous to whatever you're doing. It is pretty handy. The only time it seems to disappear is if you have initiated the digital keyboard and you are typing stuff in that keyboard. This will change to a drop arrow to get that keyboard back out of the way, and then it will change to a back arrow where you can back out of that screen. We've already talked about this first home button. This is the MaxiSYS half of the tool of the software home button, which is what brings us to this screen. Like if I hit it right now, it's not going to do anything because we're already there. The Android home takes us to our Android home. The next weird square here is the Pages button. So if you think about when you open like web pages on your cell phone, they open in multiple tabs. That's pretty much what this is. This is the tabs that exist inside this tool. So if I hit this, we'll be able to see all of the things that I have opened so far. So we can see the MaxiSYS Home is one. Oh, I screwed that up. The MaxiSYS Home is one. The diagnostic functions, as well as the service functions. These are all windows that I've clicked so far, and you can close out of each one of these individually, or you can hit this clear all button up here on the top right, and then it'll clear all of the applications that were open. So that's what this weird square with the back sideline does. I think they probably should have changed this to be a little bit more indicative of what it does, but it is what it is. The next icon is what looks like a vertical equal sign. This is the split screen. And the way the split screen works is whichever last two of the pages you had open, so like we just talked about here, whichever last two are listed, if it's applicable, it will split screen them. So for example, here we have our MaxiSYS Home. I can also go into, we'll do our oscilloscope function. So this just automatically enters into a demo mode, which is pretty cool. I do like the demo mode of the scope. It's very helpful. But now, in any case, if you hit the split screen icon or the vertical equal icon, it will move that screen over to the left, whichever one's active. And then after you hit the split screen function, you have to hit the multi-window icon, and it will pull up the next one over on the right hand side. And I keep calling this wrong. This weird square down here is called the recent apps icon. So recent apps. So split screen will move the front screen over to the left, and then you hit the recent apps button, and the next one behind your initial screen will automatically pop over to the right. So if you can't get them where you want them, you got to open. So for example, if you wanted PID data on the left and scope on the right, you would need to open your PID data first. Excuse me, I misspoke. You'd need to open your scope first, then open your PID data. Then once your PID data screen open, hit the split screen, then hit the recent apps icon, and that will throw the scope onto the right. I hope that made sense. Yeah, just that's how it works. It's a little weird, but it is what it is. It's very useful. I've got another video, I think on the Ford 6 later, that where I actually use that function. It is very useful. I'm very happy with it. The next icon down here at the bottom is they call it the browser icon. It's just a Chrome icon. It takes you straight to Chrome and this is Chrome from the Android half of the software. So if I go to Android Home, oh yeah, it won't also navigate in half screen. You have to go to full screen and then go wherever you want. So up here in the top left, we can see we've got the Chrome function. This application is the same one that's down here on the navigator bar. They both take you to the same place, and you can do Chrome stuff. The next one is obviously a camera. The camera functions in two main ways. One, you can open it to take videos and pictures. The second one is if you push and hold, it will take a screenshot. So if I go back to our MaxiSYS Home, and I'm going to pick a different application. I'm going to go to the oscilloscope. If I just touch and hold, you'll see it'll take a screenshot of whatever's going on and save it off. I use that quite a bit. The next icon is just your sound and display brightness. The speakers on this tablet are pretty weak. I gotta admit, I do wish that the speakers were a little bit louder. I don't know if they're unable to integrate better speakers into this footprint that they already have of this tablet, or if they could improve them. But there are times where I really do want to hear something, like if watching a video or whatever, or even watching some of the, Autel has a couple of help videos on their YouTube channel or embedded in their website, and I want to be able to hear what they're saying while I'm sitting on the tablet in a vehicle. It's pretty difficult to hear. I do wish that it would go louder. And then, so you can adjust brightness, volume, not too much there. The next one is going to be your VCMI connection. So here's your three different ways, or excuse me, two of your three different ways to connect to it. So you can do Wi-Fi connection, Bluetooth connection, and then obviously if you just hardwire it, it'll detect the hardwire. So you can see right now I'm Bluetooth connected to a VCMI, and the reason that diagnostic screen keeps popping up is because it's also connected to the vehicle. Here's where you also do your updates for your VCMI, etc. The next icon is this car, and this car will take you to, it's called the diagnostic shortcut button. So if we go to our MaxiSYS home, which this is not our actual home screen, whatever, this is our original MaxiSYS home. This diagnostic application button here is the same as this application button here. So that's how you start to enter into where you want to do most of your PID data for a given vehicle that you're connected to. The next icon is your service shortcut. So if you look over here, we'll also see this orange service icon. This orange service application button is the same as this shortcut down here. Again, you can't change them, you can't organize them. I will say though, the VCMI and the diagnostic shortcuts on the bottom bar do come in pretty handy. When you're bouncing, well, when I've been bouncing back and forth between applications, especially the scope and the diagnostics or PID data, the ones at the bottom, rather than having, after you click around this thing like any phone, when you hit your recent apps button, like you'll have a whole list of all the applications that you've been going through, and you got to sort through them and try to figure out which one you're on. These ones down here at the bottom do make it a lot faster to bounce between the few that are used the most, in my experience. So the last sort of thing that I want to go over is each one of these application buttons on the MaxiSYS half of the tool and what they do, where they're taking you to. It's an interesting layout that Autel has done here. A lot of these application buttons are subcategories of other application buttons, and I'm going to show you that in example. So this service function, if I just click it, this is going to be very quick reference items. So just like you see here at the top, oil reset, park brake learns, regen, very fast functions. If the vehicle supports any of these service functions, you can just go to it directly from here. It'll connect and take you there. But what I will tell you is that the service application is a subgroup of the diagnostics application. So for example, if I want to reset my oil life, I can just go here, it'll connect to the vehicle, and it'll take me directly to the module that controls the oil life, and it will only show me that function where I can go in and reset it. There's a secondary way that I could do it. I could just go to the diagnostics function, find the module that I want to connect to, find the oil life reset, and then reset it that way. The diagnostics function is also a subgroup of the new energy function. I know this sounds weird. So I'm going to go through a specific example. I know this video is getting long, but this is how it's grouped. We'll do a simple example. So right now I'm connected to a Cavalier, and I'm just going off of memory. Let's say you want to do a crank relearn. I believe this is in the TEC learn. This is getting blurry. Let's see if the camera refocuses. It's not going to. So I'm going to hit this TEC learn here at the bottom. And now it's going to ask me to connect to the vehicle. Since it's already plugged in, it comes up with this and says, hey, I detected vehicle. Do you want to connect to this thing? There's two ways that I can do this. We know that we clicked on the service icon. So if I click this service icon down here at the bottom, it'll take me right into it. Or I can do this a manual way or a parallel to auto detect way. So what I'm going to do is tell you to remember the service icon down here on the lower right. I'm going to close out of this, and it'll bring us to this main vehicle page. Here you can go through and manually select, I could go GM, Chevrolet, Cavalier, select all the options, or I can do this vehicle ID, this auto ID button up here at the top left in blue. This, again, you can manually input it or actually scan the license and the VIN, and if you're connected to the internet, it will decode it and auto ID it as well. But we're just going to do auto detect for now, and it's going to start connecting to the vehicle. What it's doing right now in this auto detect is the same step as if I were to hit the orange service icon in the previous pop-up window. It's taking us through the exact same steps, just more than one way to get to it. So it says this is our VIN. We'll just hit OK. After it reads the VIN, it's going to start decoding the VIN and then ask for options. This is the manual. And depending on the vehicle, if you remember this for later, depending on the vehicle, those options on the right, you may have to select several of them. Specifically, some of the newer GMs are pretty heavy when it comes to content options, and you have to select quite a bit. This car, not so much, pretty basic. So it says, all right, this is our final selection of the vehicle. We'll just hit OK. And then if you remember, the way we entered this, I'm going to go back to it. The way we entered this was through the service application button. So it's very, very limited. We went service application, TEC learn, and then it detected the vehicle. So what it brought us to is only the module that functions with a TEC learn that exists. So if I click powertrain, oh, I'm in the diagnostics tab, so it's just going to read codes on it. I clicked the wrong button, but whatever, current DTCs, additional DTCs from the powertrain controller. Because the TEC learn function that we're looking for, the only module that supports that on this vehicle is the PCM. So it opened the PCM and it gives us trouble codes. There's some loud cars driving by. Because the PCM only supports the TEC function, it's the only one that it will look for codes for in this. I can also go down, I'm going to have to escape out of this first, and then our hot functions button will light up. I can hit hot functions, again, powertrain, and there's our crankshaft learn. So we can enter our crankshaft learn here, but you can see it's the only thing listed in this window. So what I want to then show you is the difference between this service application button and this diagnostics application button. So if I wanted to do the same thing, but through the diagnostics button, it gives me more options, but I will still get to the same point. So to say that, I'm going to close out of that diagnostic window so it exits. Whoops. I'm going to hit the, I'll also point this out while we're here. When we've had this window pop up a few times in past. This orange one is the one we just connected to previously. This is the service application. This blue button here is going to be the diagnostics application, even though it's a different color than the background they used to match. The green is going to be our new energy application button. And then this weird blue one with the cloud is going to be your remote expert. Remote expert, you can do flashing, stuff like that with somebody through the internet. We won't cover that yet. So what I'm going to do is, now understand, this blue button here, the diagnostic button, is the same as this red diagnostic button here. So I'm going to click this red diagnostic button. Maybe not. There it goes. And then we're back at the same steps we saw before. So we can just go directly into our auto detect here, or I can hit the escape button or exit button, go to my auto ID at the top left, like we did previously. It'll take us through the same steps. There's a lot of weird noise going on outside. A storm is coming. Instead of going through the blue button here in the background auto ID option this time, we're just going to use this screen and you'll see it'll take us through the same steps. But remember, we're not in the service application button. We're in the diagnostics application button now. So I'm still going to hit that. It's going to ask Chevrolet. Now we go through the same process as before. It picked out the VIN. It's going to ask us for the given options. Select our manual. Get our vehicle info, hit OK. And now over here on the left, you'll already see we have more functions than we did previously. We had our hot functions button previously, but it was only hot functions and the diagnostic for the given powertrain controller. At this point, we have entered into the main diagnostics screen. When you connect to most vehicles, this is what it will probably look like. We can pick whatever module we want to go into. We can jump right into some of the hot functions, etc. But what I'm going to do is the same approach or similar approach as last time. So last time we were inside the powertrain controller. Even though we didn't select it, we selected the TEC learn function, and the only module that supports the TEC learn function is the powertrain controller. And now that we're inside the powertrain controller, we can see many of the same things. We've got our trouble codes here, a few other options, and then our active tests. Those will be like output controls, and then our special functions. Special functions inside, I already forgot, but when we were in the service application button, I think it's at hot functions. And now here it says special functions. So the wording is a little bit different, but if we click special functions, we can then see up here is our crankshaft position, our crank learn function, and then we could click that. That's where we would then go and do our thing. So connecting the vehicle, whatever. So this is a different way to get to the same function. So recapping that, all of that to say, the service application button is a subset of the diagnostics application button. The diagnostics application button is a subset of the new energy application button. So if this O2 Cavalier was a hybrid, I would then be able to also click the new energy function, and inside the diagnostic tool, we're going to cancel this. So when we would go into it, if this was a hybrid, now we should have another icon here on the left that says hybrid functions or whatever. So each one is a subset of the previous. All that to say, if you, for whatever reason, didn't know what functions existed on the given vehicle you're working on, if you always pick new energy, it will always give you all of the options, is what I've found so far. So service is a limited list function. I assume this is more for individuals with less experience, and they may not know. Oh, so it says you have to close this before you can open a different application button. So if you have somebody who doesn't know that the oil reset lies within the engine controller, or they don't know that the park brake learn function lies within the body controller or the ABS controller, wherever it is, they don't know what module it is easier for them to find it in this list and go through that process. If you have a little bit more experience, then you probably know or can easily figure out where that given diagnostic function, which module that function lies within, and you can just go to it there. That's really the only advantage I can see to service, because it still goes through the same steps. It doesn't really, if you know where you're going inside the diagnostics, it doesn't really save you a whole lot of time to hit the service function. And if you use the service application button, you're very limited in what you can do. So if you want to, I want to do a throttle relearn, you could pick either one. But if you're like, oh, I just did a throttle relearn, I want to view some throttle data now. If you did a throttle relearn through the service application button, you have to close the service application button, come back to the MaxiSYS home screen, enter in the diagnostics application button, go through the whole vehicle connection process again to then look at the data that you couldn't see within the service function. So to me, if it's a hybrid, I'm just going to click new energy every time. If it's a normal vehicle, I'm either going to click diagnostics or new energy every time. And to show this, we're still connected to the Cavalier. I'm just going to go ahead and click new energy. You'll see this one changed from the dark blue to green now. This is the exact same process that we just went through. Same VIN. It's going to ask us if it's an auto or manual. We got our manual. This is the exact same process, and it's going to look identical on the next auto scan screen as it did previously when we connected through the diagnostics application button. So here we have all the same functions, same modules. We could do just like before, we'd go into the powertrain, hit special functions. There's our crankshaft relearn right there at the top. Some of these you can also access without having to go through each individual module. So for example, we're here at the auto scan folder path, or sort of the home screen after you connect to a vehicle. You just go to hot functions here on the left. You'll see you've already got whatever functions this car supports. So here's our TEC learn that we went through previously in the service application button. There's our powertrain, there's our crankshaft learn. So you can access more or less this hot functions button. Oops, I went back too far. But more or less, this hot functions button over here on the left, when you were looking at the topology or module list screen when you first connect to a vehicle, is pretty much the pre-filtered version of the service application button. And remember, right now we're in the EV or hybrid, I forget what they call it already, the new energy. We're in the new energy application button, and it's already filtered it down. So all that to say, if you don't know where any of the service functions are for a given vehicle, maybe it's faster for a newer individual or a service advisor, or just somebody who doesn't do heavy diagnostics to find whatever they need here. For the rest of us, it's probably just going to be easier to hit diagnostics and or new energy link and then just go through it. We've got everything that we need. That is probably the most in-depth that I will go through for any of these applications. The rest is going to be much higher level of an overview. The HV battery pack test. This is part of the EV upgrade kit for the Ultra. So instead of having to go through the OBD connector to connect to the HV battery pack, this kit comes with the specific connectors that you can connect directly into one, or if there's a vehicle that is too new or Autel doesn't make a specific plug-in to the HV battery pack, then there's a pin breakout kit that you connect directly to that battery kit with. That'll be in I'm sure there's plenty of other videos out there that are shorter than mine if you'd like to go and figure that out, or if you look at my unboxing video, that content is in there. Already talked about diagnostics. The remote expert. So pretty much this is Autel's version of if you want to flash cars or you need help with something on a car, not a software issue. So different than that. But if you're like, hey, I need help diagnosing this car, or hey, I need to flash this new module, the remote expert is the Autel solution for that. We already talked about service. ADAS is going to be the function that integrates into all of the ADAS stuff that's coming out, but also if you get one of the Autel alignment racks that does ADAS, then this is how you enter into that function. Compressor test, this is going to be for your hybrid or electric vehicle compressors. It used to be, I think I may have already said this, but new energy, HV pack test, and compressor test were all grouped into one grouped icon, like the measurement sections or the measurement icons are, but they pulled them out since. Updates is just going to be giving updates for the tool. And it's interesting, this updates icon is only for the tablet. If you want to update the VCMI, you have to update it here. This update application button will not update the VCMI. It will update the operating system. It will update for new year make model vehicles that have come out, but not for the VCMI. So if we swipe left and go to our next screen, we've got our measurement functions. These are your oscilloscope, waveform generator, multimeter, bus inspection tool, all grouped into one. I don't have the ability to pull that out and separate them or move them like previous. Data manager. Now, data manager is the MaxiSYS data manager. So if you are in the Android half of the software and you start downloading files like music, you download music files or whatever, that will store in this ES File Explorer somewhere on the Android half, but it will not store in the data manager for the MaxiSYS. This is the MaxiSYS data manager. So if you're recording PID data, or you take screenshots here, or you save a scope waveform, those files that are saved while in the MaxiSYS half of the software will be stored in your data manager function. Battery test is if you have the adapter to do battery and like starting charging tests. I don't have that one, so I don't use it. Settings. Similar to data manager, this settings in the MaxiSYS half of the software is only for MaxiSYS settings. So for example, do you want imperial or metric units? Obviously, this is America, so I have imperial. This is different from the Android half of the settings. So if you just look at this layout and see some of our options, like ADAS, vehicle list, auto updates, things like that. There's nothing in here that is indicative of how the Android settings can be chosen. To show that, I'm going to go back to our Android home and I'm going to click the settings button in the Android half of the tool. This is the Android tablet settings, separate from the MaxiSYS settings. So now we've got normal phone, tablet type stuff, Wi-Fi connections, what does our display look like, storage capacity, security, location, things like that. This is different from the MaxiSYS settings. VCMI Manager, this is the same application button as the VCMI Manager icon in the lower bar. They take you to the same place. MaxiSYS tools, I always forget what this one is. Oh, this is if you're doing some triage work on the tool. So if the tool might be glitching or something like that, you can take logs and send it to engineering, etc. Support. This one is pretty helpful. So I'm probably going to blur some of that, but this is going to be when you send a data log. So if you have, for example, if you have an issue with the software or the tool, you can call Autel tech support, different from the remote expert. So we're not talking about remote export, we're talking about technical support for the software. So for example, the software misbehaves, or whenever I hit a button, it exits, or something like that. You have a software issue. This is where you start to have that transaction between yourself and Autel Engineering, and they will store all of your info. I can click the data logging. So these are previous tickets that I've filed because I've had an issue with how the software behaved, and I had Autel tech support do a screen share. They recorded what I did and then bundled that in a little package and sent it to engineering, and then we can message back and forth with engineering for each one of these issues. That was support. OEM authorization. This is to the only current vehicles I think that this really works for are the Stellantis vehicles, or the Fiat Chrysler, or Chrysler, whatever they want to call themselves this year. For their security gateway. So SGW authentication is done through this application, so you can get past that one. There's a couple other ways you can get past it. You can buy the SGW bypass harness, or like I have the bypass harness, and I also have, if you're familiar with the like PowerNet and Compact US Wide electrical architectures of the Chrysler vehicles, they have the CAN bus star connectors where all of the modules come and pin into a resistor block, and you can actually isolate module by module all in one location. The connection that the modules plug into that resistor bar or the star connector, you can get those actual 2-pin connectors, and so I have a breakout that also goes directly to the interior CAN or the powertrain CAN or CAN C at the resistor bar connection, and then you can get access to that CAN bus. If you do these types of bypasses, you may lose functionality to get all of the modules at the same time. For example, I don't remember if I still have this up or not. So on this current vehicle, we can see we've really only got one bus that everything's connected to. But if I had a second bus where I had other modules, if I'm pinned into the star connector for CAN C, I'm going to lose my CAN I connection. So if I wanted to then access a CAN I module, I'm going to have to unpin from the star connector, for CAN C, pin into CAN I, or I also have a harness will plug into both of them at the same time. But just know that when you're bypassing the gateway, you may not have access to all CAN buses at the exact same time. So if you need that, then you may as well just go ahead and do OEM authorization. But if you don't need that, then I would say just bypass the security gateway with a given harness. Moving to our last screen, the demo function is actually pretty cool. I am pretty happy with the demo function. You can go into various vehicles, read PID data, do some of the output hot functions for a given vehicle like that we went through previously, but it puts the whole tool into a demo mode. So if you ever go to some sort of industry event where they've got these and they're showcasing, they've got it in demo mode. It is a pretty good demo mode. So if you want to play with this and you're not connected to a vehicle, I do suggest playing with the demonstration application. This next one seems like useless function. The Maxi Viewer, from what I have been able to glean, it basically is a drop-down list of all of the tools and all of the functions that they have for that tool for a given year, make, model vehicle. So, for example, these are ones I've already selected. Basically, I went through and I said, the MaxiSYS Ultra tool on a 2015 Ram 3500, then I guess that's more or less your question that you're going to ask. Say, what do you do with this? And then it will tell you everything that the tool is capable of. So, for example, on using the MaxiSYS Ultra on a 2015 Ram 3500, if you want to connect to the amplifier and erase codes, you need to have software version v3.10 or above. And it just seems to be a list of, if you want to do a given function with a given tool on a given vehicle, then you have to have this software level or above. So it's just sort of a library that tells you what tool supports what year, make, model function. It's interesting. Like, here's another one. So passenger door module active test. If you want to do an active tests on a passenger door module for a 2015 Ram 3500 on a MaxiSYS Ultra, then you need Dodge v3.1.0 or greater. So it's literally just a library of what software levels you need for what function on what tool on what vehicle. The Maxi Video is trash. This is the endoscope, borescope camera, whatever, and I have it, and it sucks. The camera quality is terrible. I should have not bought it. I thought it would be much better than it was. When I'm using a borescope camera, I have a couple Amazon options that are far superior in quality and lighting to the Autel one. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if this is a placeholder for a new version that they're coming out with later, but the current one is terrible. I don't recommend buying it. Quick link is pretty helpful. This is going to be all of their service info links, whether you're using Autel, Identifix, Mitchell, whatever. You can run it on the tablet so you don't have to get out and go to your computer. This is pretty convenient to have all of this while you're in the vehicle, under the hood, whatever. Remote desktop. This is when Autel, actually, there's two different ways. So you can control this tablet remotely from any device. So for example, if I'm doing a function on a vehicle and I need to go somewhere, I can actually remote in from my cell phone and control this tablet if it's powered up and connected to the internet, even if it's on a vehicle or whatever. So anywhere that you download the remote desktop application, you can remotely control this tablet from that other application, from the other device. Also, if you have an issue with your tablet that you're trying to work through. So like when I showed those two engineering notes where I filed 2 trouble tickets previously because I was running into a software issue, Autel tech support will use the remote desktop function. They will watch your screen, they will do their own recording, and then send that to themselves. So that's how that's done. Pretty helpful. Also, remote desktop is great if you're in a learning environment or a teaching environment where you want to project on a screen or control from like an overhead presentation and the vehicle's in the shop. The remote desktop is the way to do it because everything can be in the shop, and then you can connect this uh, wirelessly or through the internet and have that function. That said, as we've been through previously, the Autel does have outputs. So we do have, and I can't see it, but we do have an HDMI output where you can project onto a screen. But if the vehicle that you're connecting to is greater than your, whatever, 368 feet or whatever it was away, like if it's in another building, then that function won't work for you. But if I'm on the other side of town, or if you're doing remote training in a different town or a different state, even a different country, or whatever, if you want to connect to somebody else's vehicles and show that, you can use that remote desktop function. It is pretty handy. I use it every time I have to connect, every time I have called tech support, we use the remote desktop function and they can see what I'm doing live. It's very, very handy. User feedback, you can imagine that's exactly what it is. If you say, hey, I like the tool, hey, I don't like the tool, you can submit it back. And then the user center is just going to be some of your account information stored with this tablet that Autel has registered. This is the mandate, I think, that goes to China based on our initial conversation. The last thing that I want to go through is the file storage locations and cache clear. So if I hit the Chrome browser, one thing I don't like about the Chrome browser is every single time you open it, it creates a new tab and takes you to the Autel home. I haven't figured out how to turn that off yet. So you can see I have 3 tabs open at the top. If I then close this, if I close this Chrome browser and then reopen it, now I have 4 tabs at the top, 2 of the same Autel homepage. It's kind of annoying. Just a little gripe while we're going through it. Anyway, if you want to screenshot this or whatever, these are ways that I found to get files off of the tool. So doing a quick little jump back in our data manager, if you remember, I'm going to jump back another one. So I'm going to go to the diagnostics shortcut. If I want to do a fault scan on this vehicle, we'll let this finish. It will then list all of the faults for each one of the modules on this vehicle, which most of you have probably seen at this point in someone's video. As soon as this is done scanning, we will click this list tab at the top. All right, so this is going to list everything I have. So we have 2 codes in the ABS module. If you click the save button up here, you can do save as PDF. And it will save it, we'll call this the Cavalier. Even though it's for the license plate, you have to have it in there, which is kind of dumb, but whatever. This now saved this as a PDF, and it saved it as a PDF in the PDF tab on the data manager function. So I can now click PDF, there's my Chevrolet. Now I can see the same thing, there's our 2 codes. So this is the report for what we just scanned that it saved. So if you want to pull this report off of this tablet and email it to somebody or upload it to a computer, or like I upload them to a Google Drive for customers to see because it's the easiest for me. You have to find this file, and you have to find this file somewhere in the database of the tablet. And what I will tell you is, even though you can access it to view it here in the PDF function of the data manager application of the MaxiSYS half of the software, if you were to pull this off via USB cable to your laptop, for example, you don't find the MaxiSYS home, the data manager function, the PDF function, etc. You have to find it on the Android half of the tool. So that means where that PDF saved, you can access it here, even though it was saved from the MaxiSYS half of the software. It goes here to the data manager on the MaxiSYS half of the software. If you want to access that externally, you have to go to the Android half. So Android half, ES File Explorer. Then you have to go through your libraries and figure out where it came from. Luckily, for most of these, there's a Recents tab, so new files. So here it is. But if you want to access, if I want to plug in my computer USB to here and pull it directly off via USB, here are the, for at least Windows, the Windows folder paths to do so. So if I connect, again, from USB from my PC to the Autel tablet, and I want to copy off that PDF, I call it a scan report, you have to go to the ES File Explorer, Storage, Emulated, 0, Scan, Data, PDF, then the file. So it's not very intuitive. The folder path that the files are stored on in the Android half are not very intuitive. So I've just taken a couple notes on folder paths to get certain data that I use the most. So PDFs and screen recordings are the ones that I am frequently pulling off and via computer. And so I just save them here to actually find them easier when I'm trying to sift through the different folder paths that exist, because there's a lot of them. Once you start pulling files off, this will probably make more sense. If you're not pulling files off, then you probably don't care. The last thing I'll go over is a cache clear. If the tablet starts to act goofy, this is what I got from Autel tech support in a way to sort of, reboot the tablet. Or like if you have even on, well, never mind on that. If the tablet acts funny, you can go through these steps and try and clear that out. So you can go Android Home, Apps, MaxiSYS, and then select Force Stop and Clear Cache. So let's do that. Android Home, Settings, Apps, MaxiSYS. So Android Home. Turn my pen off. Just making a mess out of this. Let's try this again. Android Home, Settings, and then we want Apps, and then scroll down to MaxiSYS, and then here we can do a force stop, and then here we can do a clear cache. So those are the steps to take if your tool is acting funny and you need to do some sort of reset. So it'll clear out some of the data. So you might risk losing some of the files that you've saved from whatever, so make sure you save those first. But if it's acting goofy, these are the ways to sort of reset that and try to make it act normal again. So in looking at the time clock for this video, I've been going for quite a while. I really did not expect to go that long. Again, if you're still hanging out here at the end of this, you're a true dork. Welcome to the club. But I hope this was helpful in explaining how the software in the tool works and what all of the weird buttons are in the MaxiSYS half of the software as well as the navigator bar at the bottom. I haven't seen anybody talk through all those details and show what each one does. If you're thinking about getting a tool, again, for me, I wish this was a video out there that I could have watched before I bought it because it's a lot of money. So hopefully this just helps somebody else who is thinking about buying one of these tools and isn't sure what all those buttons are for and what they do. But that's all I got for you today. We will catch y'all in the next one.